Hey you, what is up? How's it going? This is Kazi from cleverprogrammer.com. I am with my host or my good friend today, Brian.
Yes.
Brian runs a company called CrossFit Illumina. And before we get into the company and we talk about it, I want to talk about how you will benefit from this video, okay? So as a software developer or whatever you're doing, if you're an entrepreneur or intrapreneur, right, and you want to either get a full-time job, okay, or you want to become a freelancer and kind of run your own business, or you want to become an entrepreneur and kind of start a real business, a lot of the things we will talk about are going to be very strategic and very, very tactical. So basically, a lot of the advice you'll be able to apply to a lot of those things, okay? And in this video, we're just going to kind of have a free-flowing conversation because a lot of the things we were talking about, I started connecting with him recently. He was my coach when it came to fitness, and just incredible guy, and he was just offering me so much value and like insight into a lot of things in life and in business. And so when I came to Chicago, I'm in Chicago right now, my hometown, I decided to drop by and speak. And just a little bit about Brian, you started CrossFit Illumina in 2011, you said 2012?
Yeah, 11, 12, yeah.
Okay, cool. So, he started then, took it from a 1,700 square feet, like little place, to a 17,000 square feet. Is that right?
Yeah.
17,000 square feet. And it grew from almost nobody to having 350 members at this point, right?
Yeah.
And how many people do you have on your staff at this point?
So we have a lot. We have about 25 in total. Part-time, full-time, all of that, right?
Okay, perfect. And what's incredible about him and this company and CrossFit is that it's not just about fitness, but a lot of like mental mastery as well.
Yeah.
And this gym, when I was going to it, honestly, none of the gyms I've ever been to ever felt like this. It kind of feels like a family. When I was here, it's like everybody, when I was working out and doing CrossFit, I was a member here 4.5 years ago. And I see you guys went to like dinners together, and a lot of these people, when you post about it on Facebook, a lot of them are just like volunteer to come and help you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To like set up the stuff.
Right.
And you don't get to run a business like that unless you truly care about the other people and bring them incredible value and incredible results. And Brian has been able to do that. And he likes to call himself like the connector of dots, which is pretty cool. And basically, he thinks in the clouds at high level, and he brings these people together, and he's the one who comes up kind of with the vision, and then he works with his team to realize it. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about is going to be based on understanding yourself, self-discipline, self-mastery, and understanding yourself and understanding everybody else around you. So does that do a little bit of justice?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good overview. But yeah, it's so much more than a gym.
Yeah.
So much more than about fitness, right? We say it's an enlightened approach to human being. So mind, body, and soul, right? You have to nurture all three, and we help with that.
That's epic.
Yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah. So I'm excited, man. It's we were able to connect about 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Or reconnect, I'll call it.
Reconnect.
But yeah, we've had some deep Facebook Messenger conversations.
Really crazy.
And it's amazing, man. You don't connect at that level with everybody.
Yeah.
And not everybody's ready to hear a message, which might be written off as motivational crap, right?
Yes. Not a lot of people are ready to hear it. I definitely feel that. And once you grow your business to like a certain level, or you're working on building a business, I feel like you become very, kind of what we were talking about, you feel very isolated.
Yeah.
Because your problems are very different from what a lot of other people's problems are.
Right.
For example, maybe somebody who's trying to get a job, their problem is to like make X amount of money or to get promoted to the next level and the next level and get like more and more years of experience.
Yeah.
But if you're an entrepreneur and you're growing a business, once you hit those revenue marks where you have enough for yourself, where you have enough for your family, it's not just about like the money or anything anymore.
Right.
It's like kind of about providing that value to other people. but also it being in line with what you want to do ultimately.
Yeah.
So when you get that time to think for yourself and reflect, like, is this really in line with what I want to be doing like 10, 20, 30, 60 or 70 years from now?
Yeah.
And it's really scary when sometimes the answer is no.
Yeah, it's very scary, but it's necessary to be introspective frequently.
Yeah.
Because you could get too far down a path and maybe trap yourself or, or worse, right?
Yeah.
So, Harvard actually has a study called the Happiness Index.
Wow.
Depending on where you live, California is different than Chicago, different than New York. But there's a number that, let's say Chicago is 70 grand. Beyond 70 grand, you're able to take care of all the necessities of life, some luxuries. You can buy a house, a car, go out to dinner, and feel safe, right? It's basically safety.
Yeah.
But anything above that or beyond that doesn't get you any more happiness.
Wow.
So it gives you more things, which maybe could cause you to be more unhappy sometimes.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like, okay, now that I've secured this level of security, now what, right? And it's a scary thing. That's what the midlife crisis is for people when they're 50. Luckily, we've arrived at it a lot earlier, and I think a little more proactively than reactively.
Yes.
Which is a good thing.
You're definitely, I would say ahead in terms of like where I want to be, in terms of when I listen to you talk about your alignment with your business goals, life goals, and kind of where you're at. And I really appreciate, that about you, where you took the time to really look introspectively. Because a lot of the coaches and motivational things out there are just like, do more. And I feel like I have done a lot more, and I have grinded a lot, and I did put in 20 hours a day. But it's not about that anymore.
Yeah.
Like I really want, for example, the students to be really successful. So one of the things that is, like there's an online course that I told you about that I have.
Yeah.
And students are going through it, and that's great. But I want to be able to be there for the students in a better way, in a way that they'll become more successful, and I can be more accountable.
Right.
And that they can have more accountability and a higher success rate. And so, will that make me more money? Maybe.
Yeah.
But it will definitely give me a lot more happiness and fulfillment.
You'll feel good about what you're doing, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
So whatever you did up until that point, it's what you knew.
Yes.
But now that you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yes.
Right? And this happened to me within the gym. I use the analogy of we used to do a group on-ramp, and the goal was just get as many people to try CrossFit, right?
Yeah. I was in the on-ramp program.
You were in the on-ramp, yeah. And it worked for some people.
Yeah.
But it didn't work for a lot of people, and it's because we had one product, a round peg, and we try to, fit a round peg in a square hole kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it works for some people, and it's not the survival of the fittest, really, if your goal is to help people and help people deeply, rather than like help as many people as you can, right? So you come to this realization of like, am I helping people by introducing to this and then having them fail?
Yes.
Or can I do it better?
Yes.
Right? Which is pretty interesting. And then when you know that, then you have to do it. If something can be better,
yes,
you have to pursue that. And I have a thing called the relentless pursuit of better.
Wow.
And if you can live by that principle, and it's not like pathologically pursuing better, because that could be it too, but there's a fine line between pathological and genius.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're hitting that, or you've hit that. I've hit that. I think it's a natural progression of just the inner growth of an entrepreneur.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I love that the reckless pursuit of better, being better.
The relentless pursuit of better.
So does that kind of come from Tim Grover, the Relentless book, a little bit? Or?
It doesn't. No. So what's funny is I don't consume a lot.
Okay.
From the outside, and it's only because I've realized like I do better with less input because it introduces more noise and confusion for my own direction.
Yeah.
And I think there's like universal truths that people arrive at, no matter what they do, because they run into problems and have to solve them.
Yeah, that was like super interesting to me, dude. Like when you told me that, I think we were talking on Facebook Messenger, and you were talking about like looking introspectively, and I feel the more the business was growing, I was kind of, I'm hiring mentorship, and I'm getting coaches, and they're great. They're great. But I feel like I'm just looking more and more outward rather than inward. And what ends up happening is I might end up doing the thing I was going to plan to do in the first place anyway.
Right.
But now there's just like a lot more resistance and it just takes way longer to do that thing. Whereas like before, I just executed.
Yeah, you acted.
Yeah, and when I, based on all the different business models, based on that, clever programmers shouldn't have grown as fast.
Right.
But the reason why it grew kind of abnormally fast and in a good way was because there wasn't a lot of noise. I would just go to my office that I got in Chicago, Regis. I still have it. God, you can't get out of that contract.
Yeah, get out of here. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been paying for that forever, but that's okay. When I would go to that place, I'd just sit in this little like 400 square feet room with like nothing else to do but work. And I would just execute. And I would get there 5 a.m. in the morning and I would leave 9 or 10 p.m., go home, sleep.
Yeah.
And then maybe go to the gym and just like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Now those were the days where everything grew the fastest because I feel like I had the least amount of noise. And now I have all these ideas and like, internal fulfillment and clarity and alignment and like doing something that gives value but is also really true and authentic to myself and speaking with different coaches and different opinions, and it's like there's a lot of it just takes me a lot longer. So when you shared that with me, that kind of really rang true with me internally. Like that gut reaction?
Yeah.
It was kind of like a gut reaction and I'm like, I feel like I need to start looking more introspectively, like inwardly, and trust it more. And I feel like as people, we're scared to do that because then we can't blame it on something else.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree. You really have to, you got to believe in yourself. What worked for somebody else might not work for you in how you actually operate.
Right.
So I operate on I'd say I operate best when creating. And to be creative, you have to use logic as a tool, but logic cannot be the only tool. Like there's something that transcends logic, and I create amazing things when I can transcend logic, and then do things that maybe other people would not feel comfortable doing.
Yeah.
That seem counterintuitive to success.
Yes.
And maybe it could never work for them because they don't see that there is another layer.
Yeah.
And maybe logic only worked for them, so they're going to tell you logic is the way. And it is a way.
Yes.
A way. But it's not the only way.
Yeah. Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't be definite that logic is the only way and tell people this is the only way.
Yes.
Anybody that tells me this is the only way is I write off immediately because I prove people wrong all the time.
All the time.
So Zappos, I just got back from an awesome training company called Waterfy. Flew them out to train their entire staff on customer service and culture.
Wow, Zappos flew them out.
Waterfy paid them as consultants.
Wow.
Zappos.
Okay.
So world renowned for customer service. Zappos gets 40% of their orders returned. So 40% of their orders get returned. Logically, that sounds like a horrible business model, but they're hyper profitable.
Wow.
And their purpose statement, and they haven't always been this way, but they've developed this culture that their purpose is to deliver wow. That's very vague.
Yeah.
Deliver wow. What does that mean?
Wow.
It means that some customer service girl stayed on the phone for 12 hours with a customer, and that was delivering wow. Not logical, but they're hyper profitable.
That is insane.
They still get 40% of their orders returned. If somebody wants to try 8 pairs of shoes, they'll say order all 8, all colors, and then return the ones you want. Not logical, but it works, right? Why does it work? Because everybody believes in it.
Wow.
Here's an interesting anecdote that is tied to me personally, and I'm the idiot that learns the hard way.
Yeah.
All the time. But these lessons stick with me, and I fail, and I make mistakes. I learn, I grow, I adjust. I built this place without any expectation of outcome.
Wow.
I had a corporate job, I was making a killing in sales, and I built this place with passion and purpose, literally just making people happy and doing the right thing all the time. And then I went a little too deep on logic at one point and began diving way too far into metrics, way too far into numbers, making decisions based on the outcome. And there's a timestamp in my revenue where that change occurred, and it began to dip. And it was tough, man. It was like, okay, and then the more it dipped, the more logical I got, because I needed to solve the problem. I came up with intricate solutions, architected all these beautiful things based on logic. And the reality was, I needed to get back to who I was and who the person was that actually, the Brian that created this place.
Yeah.
And it's been like this, it's been this amazing journey, because I've learned so much. And owning a gym like this and being a leader, it's kind of like the crash course, your crash MBA.
Yeah.
You make a choice and a decision, and you can see how it plays out in reality.
Yes.
And you get instant feedback.
Ultimate crash course.
It's amazing. So you make tremendous progress as a leader if you're intuitive and introspective, and you can look at things objectively and say, wow, that did not work, or that's because I did this or that. So it's amazing to think that logic is great, but it's a tool.
I 100% agree with that. And I think what happens is that you get put at a very disadvantageous position when you think that logic is the only way, or you think the creative way is the only way.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be open to both. So for example, my audience, you know, some of you guys are software developers or want to become software developers. We think very logically.
Right.
Code is either right or wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of us also do math.
Right.
There's always one right answer.
Yeah.
You know, but maybe there are different ways to get to it. And then also, I've played chess, you know, and so it's very logical.
Right.
But it's also very creative. Like,
Sure.
there's a lot of creativity that gets involved. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's like pretty logical. And so we get incentivized for a lot of our logical behavior.
Right.
Except then there's certain points where you hit plateaus, you know. And if I think about, like, let's say Copernicus, who had a vision that there were multiple worlds.
Yeah.
You know, and he proved it to be true. You can't logically just come up to that, like, you can't just logic your way through that. There needs to be some imagination and some creativity.
Right.
And then he had to prove it, maybe using a tool like logic that could prove it, and it was like a system that everybody else could understand.
Right.
And then Newton had to do the same thing, where he developed calculus apparently on a freaking farm.
Right.
And that was a tool to communicate about certain, like, ideas.
Yeah.
But those are just that tools.
Yeah.
The imagination and creativity is what created something out of literally thin air, and that's why I like what you said about you're the asset, you're the magician.
Yep.
And so, for example, in the world of programmers, we're very logical, and so, you know, I'll hear that on my channel, like, sometimes, you know, and sometimes it drains me, but now it doesn't really bother me anymore. But, like, I'll talk to them about, like, you can be making $50 an hour. You can be making $150 an hour. Like, it's not hard.
Right.
Like, I had only a few years of experience, and I was making $150 to $200 an hour.
Right.
And when I share that with people, I almost feel like I'm scamming them.
Right.
Because I'm thinking that they're thinking that.
Yeah.
Because I get comments, they're like, Psh, $50
No
an hour.
way.
I've been working for 15 years, and I'm making $40 an hour.
Right.
You know, so it's like something that's just not even possible. Except the layer that they don't see, because the only way they're thinking about it is like, well, I need 10 more years of experience, right?
Right.
Don't I need like 4 more master's degrees?
And that's going to cost me X, and it's not worth it, or this or
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
How about this? You go in and you talk to your boss.
Right.
You know, you take him out to a lunch, or you build a relationship with him, and you know, maybe find a way to provide more value than anybody else does. Maybe find those biggest leverage points and ask.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times in my life, I've just asked and I've received.
Yeah.
You know?
It's huge.
And so that's not logical.
No.
But, you know, how come somebody makes $1 billion?
Right.
Works less hard than you.
Yeah.
And is making that money.
Right,
you know?
right.
And so I don't think it's one way or the other. It's like you have to be kind of open to it and let it, you know. And so that's why I talk a lot about soft skills on my channel. You know,
Okay.
I was sharing that with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
You know, 80% of what I say is like you already got the logical mindset. That's why you're watching these videos.
Right. That's
and
your
coding.
superpower.
Right. That's already your superpower. But like, you need to open yourself up to the soft skills. And that's the biggest leverage point. Like, that's where people can easily break through 6-figure salary. And
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to kind of hear that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You mentioned something about, planning out or being fulfilled and planning out 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And I'm really big on leading people to feel fulfilled on a daily basis, right?
Right.
So I've caused a lot of unnecessary suffering for myself and other people because I didn't understand my strengths.
Yeah.
I didn't understand my weaknesses. I tried to be everything to everybody.
Right.
But I also put a lot of my team into positions of weakness. And I believe in the growth mindset. Like, I believe that is a very necessary mindset to have. I'm all about mindset.
So describe growth mindset just a little bit.
So the growth mindset is, not avoiding the things you're bad at and using everything as an opportunity to learn. So if you fail, there's always a lesson in failure, learning, and not being afraid to fail, right? The fixed mindset is thinking that people are just good at things right off the bat.
Okay.
So,
yeah, right. Okay.
You're
born with a talent.
Yeah.
They use words like gifted,
right?
Or like the business just exploded, or
right.
He became a success overnight. Okay.
Sure, and he might have had natural tendencies toward his career path, which allowed him to really go all in on his strengths and make them superpowers. But it still took deliberate practice.
Yes.
It took building of good habits and all of that, So to think about like the fixed mindset and growth mindset, I actually grew up with a fixed mindset, just thinking people were better at things than other things, and I just was never going to be good at it. And when I found I was working at CDW, first corporate job ever, and I hated every minute of it. It was phone sales, you had to cold call people, and I sucked. I was awful. And I come home every day to my girlfriend, who was my wife at the time, and I'm like, honey, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is not me. And I ended up joining CrossFit at that time.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to change. I was like 30 pounds overweight. And it was really like this transformative point of my life where I started realizing like, hey, I suck at this, but I can see how I can get better. And it's a daily thing that like, okay, I'm a little bit better. So you have a faster path to realization.
Yeah.
For the work that you put in and the feedback that you get back.
Yeah.
And I started applying that to the job at CDW in sales. And I went from being like the worst guy on the team, literally, to making 10 times the amount that I was making originally.
Yeah.
Making top 10%, 10xing my income.
Damn.
After like 5 years. And it was all the shift in mindset.
Wow.
That was, and it took time, and it took developing those skills, but it is the shift in mindset, right?
Would you say you were working 10 times harder to make 10 times more income at that time?
No, I didn't quite believe in my strengths at the time either. It was 10 years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, a little longer. I put in the hours, but it was putting in the hours to learn how to work less, like working hard first so I can be smarter, and then work less. And it came to a point where I realized I could probably do this in like an hour's time. And it's very similar to like Tim Ferriss' 4-Hour Work Week. He was in the same kind of role. The problem is middle management doesn't like that. They want you to put in the hours. But like deliberate hours versus just fluff hours are different, right?
Very different.
And it's very difficult to just put in fluff hours when if you have an hour of deliberate time.
Busy versus effective.
Correct. Yeah. Just like working out. You can go to the gym and mess around for 2-3 hours and get nothing accomplished. Or you can go to a CrossFit class and in an hour you get everything accomplished. You're done for the day and it's super effective, right? But it's an intense hour.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like it's what gets reinforced over time, and so we learn, it's like learned behaviors. And so, for example, the school system or a lot of those things, they don't incentivize you necessarily for being more effective. It a lot of the times incentivizes you for putting in that time, quote unquote.
Right.
Like for example, you can't get more than an A.
Right.
So somebody who is smart, let's say, figures out how to get an A. Now they don't have an incentive to go more than that.
Right.
And those are the things that kind of build that behavior over time. But when you're running something like a business, there's no A.
Right.
It can always get better. It can always improve. And so that's why sometimes as entrepreneurs, we feel like it allows us to really push ourselves to the limit, And so then you keep going a lot of the times.
Right.
And the scary part about that is the good part about it is that it helps you push yourself. The scary part is you can just keep going forever without like looking introspectively. And like Tony Robbins says, and I believe this, that success without fulfillment, he says, is the ultimate failure.
Yeah, and it literally leads to horrible things from like a psyche perspective.
Right.
Feeling trapped, feeling like what you've created has trapped you, being one move away from checkmate.
Yeah.
I've gone through it all within my own passion.
Yes.
I've done it to myself, right?
Yeah.
That's why I think it's really important to know who you are, know other people, and help them understand who they are. Mm-hmm. So you can't do that to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. One exercise that I do with everybody, and it's not religious, but can I run on it?
For sure.
So this is like an audit of yourself or your staff on a daily basis.
Okay.
To look introspectively, and I say it's not religious because I'm using terms, but let's call it hell, purgatory, and then heaven.
Okay.
So I'll tie this together.
Cool.
So I ask my team frequently, and when we
hell, purgatory, heaven, I like it.
When we preach to gym owners, everybody, myself, everything, hell is the things that you do on a daily basis that you loathe, that drain you, that you detest, right?
Yes.
Heaven is the things that you do on a daily basis that make you light up, or the things that you want to be doing that you're not doing that make you light up, right?
Yeah.
So normally that's going to be like your strengths and superpowers, right? Now purgatory is the things that you're proficient at and indifferent about. So you might be good at something.
Like a limbo.
Limbo, right?
Yes.
Something that you're proficient at, indifferent. Maybe you have to do it temporarily because you're the business owner. But really, the big focus is, okay, let's list 5 things here, 5 things here, 5 things here. Let's just completely get rid of these instantly. And your life will be 10 times better and happier. And then let's make a plan to offload these. Now, the trick is you cannot offload the things that drain you to another person that it also drains. That's not fair.
That's so important. Like anybody who's going to be running a business, thinking about running a business, just say that again for them. That's so important.
So you cannot offload the things that drain you, that you loathe, to other people who it also drains and will loathe it. It's a temporary solution, but it's not a fix. I've done it.
Yes.
I think we all have, right?
And it's a half year to a year-long painful mistake, maybe even more years, and you have to let that person eventually go or something, and it's emotionally painful, it's mentally painful, and it costs you, it's financially painful.
Yes. I call it unnecessary suffering.
Yes, and unnecessary suffering for everybody.
For everybody involved. Yes.
And so that's why you say that it's so important to understand your personality type and whatnot. And so, Colby tests and all those things.
Yeah, but many ways to skin the cat there.
Yeah.
Now, just because you loathe things and it drains you, doesn't mean other people don't light up while doing those things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we make the mistake.
It's really hard to believe that.
It is.
It's like, if I hate it, who's gonna like this?
Right. And I feel bad. I don't want to, push it off on them. Right. But the reality is, like, you're not doing it anyway, and you're doing it poorly if you are.
Yeah.
So if you're giving your 20% and they're going to give 100, they're going to be better off, happier by doing the things that make them light up.
Yes.
So it's a really easy audit to do frequently. If you have a team, you should do it for yourself for sure.
Yeah.
In life, you can put, people that drain you rather than things that drain you. Same philosophy, really easy to do, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's just a universal truth that you arrive at after screwing up so many times.
So do you do this with your team every week?
Not every week, no.
Or kind of once?
Frequently, let's call it quarterly, right?
Quarterly, okay.
Because things that...
Do you do it kind of one-on-one, or do you do it mostly let's say in a meeting with a group of people?
It depends.
Okay.
I've done it in groups. I've done it, I gave a talk to 150 gym owners and 100 coaches. We hosted a business summit here.
Oh, that's awesome.
For a company that I business mentor for, Two Brain Business.
If you have footage of that,
I do.
We'll add that in here a little bit.
It was awesome. But I made everybody do this. And the owners brought their team members, the coaches. And I told the coaches, guys, by the very principle that we teach what we call the perfect day. We should be striving for the perfect day.
When you were calling it that, there's something I've created. I don't know if I shared it with you. I literally call it my perfect day technique.
Okay.
And I thought I was the only one who came up with it.
Universal truth.
This is crazy, and I made this video a while ago on top 4 ways to stop procrastinating.
Okay.
And it's not a motivational video. It's like very strategic and tactical.
Yeah.
And it's a great video. I have it on YouTube. And in that, one of the things I say is like the perfect day technique. So, okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Go ahead. What did you share?
You know, the gym owners brought their team, and there were separate rooms, 100 coaches, 150 gym owners.
By the way, guys, that's incredibly hard to do. Like, to get people to show up, it's really hard. Like, Clever Programmer on YouTube is like pretty huge, but I'd be lucky if I can get like 3 people to show up in one spot, because it's like, it's just difficult. And so getting 150 gym business owners, like, that's tough. So that's awesome. And you were giving a speech to them. So
to them, and then 100 coaches separately. So
Wow.
250 people in total. We're here for the Two Brain Business Summit. For the coaches, I said, listen, guys, we teach the gym owners that they should pursue their perfect day. And here's what it means. And you've probably heard of it. But by the very principle of them pursuing their perfect day, they have to do it for you too, as the coaches, as their staff members, right? So I made them do this.
Describe it a little bit. Perfect
day is just like an ideal day. Like, what would that look like? It changes frequently, but what are the things that you want to do? What are the things that you don't want to do? Like, do you want to work in the business for 2 hours? Do you want to work on the business for 2 hours? Do you want to work out? Do you want to spend your time with your family? Everyone has a different perfect day. Let's define it and use it as an anchor point or a goal to strive towards. You might never get there, but your life will be better if you pursue it, right?
Yes.
So I made the coaches go through this exercise.
Okay.
And I'm like, guys, you have to go to your bosses who are in that other room.
Yeah.
And tell them personal training drains me, and it's not doing anybody any justice.
Yeah.
I have another philosophy that I personally use with the team and everybody. It's win-win-win. If you're a business owner and you're teaching your staff members to make decisions without you, the win-win-win philosophy is it's got to be a win for the business, a win for the staff member, and a win for the client.
Wow.
And if you can run everything through that filter, then it's great.
That's great.
So if you're introspective enough to know that you're not effective in one area, then you should fire yourself and then work on the things that make you light up, because the client's not winning, the business isn't winning, and you're not winning, right?
Wow, yes.
So relate that to personal, and if you don't own a business, the world isn't winning if you're doing the things that aren't within your strengths and that drain you, right?
Yes, and that's sometimes what stops you from growing through that. Like, a lot of times people are like, I'm stuck at that one level where I'm making a certain income. How do I get past it? If you can really understand, like, the people who are in position to give you a higher paying job, the only way that will take place is if their business wins and that business's clients win.
Right.
And so for you to be able to do that, you have to see where your biggest leverage points are, not where you can put in the most hours,
right,
but where you light up, where you're in your zone of genius, so you can leverage your skill set. And that's where you will see the biggest impact on your bottom line and revenue, you know, for people who are like, let's say you're doing a job, you know, and that's like an important thing for people who are doing a job.
Right. To do good work, you have to do things that you're passionate about, period. Yeah. So when you talked about procrastinating, if you procrastinate on something, more than likely it's not within your realm of strengths, and there's a reason why you're not working on it, right?
Yeah. I mean, okay, so sometimes, like, honestly, so one thing that happens with me is I get bored.
Right.
I'm like, I get it. Like, this is how you do it, and it gets boring. So it's like, I love training people. Like, I love kind of making videos on new coding tutorials and whatnot.
Yeah.
But it's like, sometimes it's not the thing that wants me to wake up in the morning.
No, yeah.
And
maybe at one time it was.
It was.
But if it's not now, then you have to find somebody who lights up,
enjoys. And so one of the things is, like, for Clever Programmer, you know, what I am thinking about is, like, I want it to be something bigger than myself. And before I started, and before it was kind of like, it became too much for me personally.
Yeah.
My vision was, I want coding to be like a core subject in the world. Like, I want everybody in the world to know some form of coding.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I think it's so important. It's such an important way of thinking, and it makes you so like, so many people have so many ideas, but then they can't create it.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, it was like, you can have any idea, like the craziest idea. You know how we're operating in Cloud9?
Yeah.
And then imagine being able to turn into this physical thing everybody in the world can download.
Right.
So it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate artist, you know, everybody can use your art like in seconds.
And it's the ultimate gift you can give somebody. It's teaching them how to fish, right? Rather than
Teaching them how to fish.
Right.
And so, you know, history is a core subject and math is a core subject. You know, I sucked at math, and I tell this to everybody. I sucked at math. People think I was so good at math. No, I was like failing it.
Yeah.
But when I found coding, what I would do is I would take physics and math and those things that they just give you as formulas.
Yep.
We don't learn with formulas, you know.
Yeah.
People like you and I, and so I would like create the thing and program it. I would create a little cannon and then I would like shoot like the ball at different angles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's why 45-degree angle is the best angle to shoot a javelin or throw a cannon at.
Right.
And so for me, it allowed me to see those abstract things.
Right.
And it allowed me to turn things into tangible reality and not just like talk in clouds. So for me, it was like this amazing thing, and I wanted to share it with the world. And I'm like, this should be a core subject. Should be taught right next to history, English, all those things. But as I got more and more into the business and like kind of I am the business, like last month I was sick and there were no videos.
Right.
You know, there's no business.
Yeah.
And if my mood changes and let's say I'm depressed, well, people see that energy, so I'm not going to create a video in those days.
You can't be on all day long, every
And when
day.
I'm thinking it's just work, 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 it takes that enjoyment out of it in the masterpieces I would create, because now I'm not thinking I need to create a masterpiece. I'm thinking I need to create something every week.
Right.
And that just sounds like a chore.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it anymore.
Right, right.
And that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, and so basically the things that used to wake me up in the morning don't wake me up anymore. And so I was thinking last month, I'm like, am I just lazy or did I lose that drive?
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about what would wake me up in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I thought about something, and I don't do that anymore. But what would wake me up is I remember I would go to chess tournaments.
Okay.
And I don't care how early there were, 7 or 8 a.m. And that was my fucking favorite thing.
Yeah.
To wake up for. It doesn't matter if I slept at 4 a.m. I would wake up 6 a.m., get there nice and early. I have my coffee. I find out who I'm going to play against. I start researching their games, like talking with people.
Right.
It's the most amazing experience ever for me. So I'm like, there are things I would wake up for.
Sure.
But I just need to look more inwardly. 1. 2, it made me realize that, you know, I need to stop beating myself up for not wanting to do the things that, you know, I'm like, oh, I need to do it because it's going to grow the business. And if I'm not doing it, I beat myself up for it.
Right, right.
And maybe, like you said, you know, turn Clever Programmer into a platform for passionate developers who want to share that message.
Right.
And then give and let them have the platform, you know, and share it with the world. So the world gets even more value.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just a natural evolution of the entrepreneur, especially the creative entrepreneur, where you've personally grown so much from this, but almost detrimentally to your point of now being like, okay, I've done it all, and I know how to do it all.
Kind of like being the bottleneck too.
You're the bottleneck. You're the one thing kind of like holding your business back from exploding because you are the icon.
Yes.
Yeah, you're the business. So you're uber successful, but as long as it requires you own a very, very high paying job.
Yes.
And it's I've run into every entrepreneur runs into that. Good book, The E-Myth, and it's a natural evolution. But now you need to figure out, like, okay, if you're creative and you've learned all you can learn, you've done everything you can do, to figure out how do you make this bigger without you.
Let me ask you something. So, you know, I've grown up with the mentality of, and my family always says, if you want something done right, and I'm sure we're all very familiar with this, do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I wanted to I started realizing that that's not the right way to think, because that's not how businesses grow.
Right.
You know, so that was one. And another thing was, like, I'm going to ask you, like, how do you feel about how did you overcome handing off responsibility to other people? Because here's how I think about it and how I explained it to my brother. So I was talking with my brother one time, and I was on a call, and he was talking with me, and I was like, I'm trying to hand off, you know, a lot of responsibilities to new hires, new people I'm hiring.
Yeah.
And different people. But I'm like, it just doesn't feel right. And he goes, yeah, because, it's kind of like they're your babies and you have to mentor them.
Right.
And I was thinking about that. And then the more I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it's not like that. It's more like the business is like this little toddler. It's my baby.
Yeah.
That I work really hard to grow and make it survive up until this point. And then somebody else kind of comes in. They take the baby and they like hold the baby up at the top and then just like flip the baby and just drop it on its head from like 10 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just witnessed that, and now I have to go to that person and be like, that's okay, you fucked up.
Right.
And you dropped my baby.
Yep.
And now we're going to work through it.
Yeah.
And I have to remain calm, and I can't get angry.
Yeah.
And I have to walk them through the process. And so I'm like, that's more of what it's like, and that's where it feels really painful handing off things from your business.
It is.
So how did you kind of overcome that, and what was that first realization that you had that you're like, I need to overcome this and I need to hand it off?
It's for me, it was being the central point where everybody was pulling at me. Like, there would be a point 4 years ago where I'd walk through the gym and I couldn't not get stopped and saying, hey, I have to change my membership. This happened, that happened. The coach would come to me and say, hey, I can't figure this out. And it was being pulled in every direction. And I'm like, wow, I left like this super high paying corporate job where I had freedom and
wow.
Amazing things by that standard. And what I built here required everything from me. And everybody needed me. It was my fault.
And it wasn't necessarily things that were fueling you. They were kind of draining you a little bit at a time.
Because I was walking out on the floor and 20 people would tell me something and I'd have to try to remember it.
Yeah.
So I didn't have proper systems in place at the time. I was actually piss poor at doing all of it. Actually, I'm not a detail-oriented person. So I was in misery just like checking boxes and doing all this stuff. So just many, many lessons over time. I realized that was not the way. And if it had to be the way, then I didn't want to do this anymore.
Yes.
And that was very early on. And then I realized, like, you can't... Like, how did you learn? You learned by dropping the baby.
Yes.
Many times. So I believe that you have to give clear instruction. You have to give black and white, like, here's how to do it. So SOPs, anything.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, you have to give them the freedom to fail.
That's scary. But yeah, you do.
It is scary, but it's detrimental to their growth if you don't. Because it's the only way I learned. It's the only way you learned. And you stunt their growth if you're always over their shoulder.
It's kind of like a helicopter parent.
Yeah, they don't feel trusted.
Yeah.
So, a lot of misery and unnecessary suffering for me trying to be the puppet master, and then me realizing, like, wow, I'm literally hindering these people from growing because I'm not allowing them to grow.
Did you go like really aggressive on some people in the start?
Yeah, and it's
Do you have some stories from that where there was one specific time you remember where you kind of went hard on somebody and the way you criticized them?
Yeah, I have many.
Share.
My wife specifically.
Okay.
So I thought everybody could be or should be like me.
Okay.
And I was like tyrant to myself.
Yes.
And I produced some outcomes from it. There was some severe consequences to my psyche because of it.
Yes.
But that's how I treated other people too. Like, I was very hard on myself, so I was very hard on other people. I'm like, just
very similar.
Try harder. Like, no, you're not getting it. Just put in 16 hours and just try as hard as I try.
Yes.
And then I realized, like, I was making people miserable, and actually the outcomes were ineffective and worse. And it took a lot of introspection and, learning about who I was and how people interact with each other to realize, like, that is the puppet master that's leading by fear and control and all of that. And the outcomes are always better if you lead with love and empowerment, right?
Yeah.
But
so you were kind of forcing your wife to, like, put in that work and
it just wasn't who she was. It doesn't mean she's lazy by any means. It's just not how she operates. Like, I was speaking German and she was speaking English, and I was trying to force her to speak German, and it's just not in her. She doesn't know it.
Yeah.
I use an analogy of a starting lineup of a basketball team. I've learned a lot about strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, that was a great analogy. I've shared that. I've heard your shared recording on that, and I was sharing that with multiple people I've told about that, and they were like, "This is awesome." I shared this with my brother because he's now building a team, and a few other entrepreneurs are building a team. And I told them, it was from you, and I'm like, it was epic. So yeah, just you can share that now too, because I think it's really valuable.
A condensed version, but I don't even watch sports, but I think we can all relate to the physical attributes of a starting lineup for a basketball team. So you have a power forward, shooting guard, point guard, small forward, and a center. They all have unique strengths that allow them to play their position really well. So what happens when you pull that team off the court, bring them to the bench, and begin moving people around, and you put the point guard at center and the power forward at shooting guard, and you throw them back onto the court, and this is from a team perspective, you can put them back onto the court, and yes, they'll still be playing basketball. And actually, yes, they'll still be playing the game that they love.
Yeah.
But they'll be ineffective.
Yeah.
Their confidence levels will drop because they're not playing optimally.
Yeah.
They might grow through some adversity a little bit, but the point guard is never going to be a great center. It's just they're not equipped for it, right?
Yes.
So, physical attributes, it's a lot easier to see.
Yes.
But strengths, innate strengths that people carry, it's not laziness. It's just who they are at their very core and their very being.
I absolutely love this.
If you can figure out what your innate strengths are and figure out what other people's innate strengths are, and then build your team around your gaps to support that,
yes,
you can accomplish amazing things.
Yes.
And it's not tangible. You can't see it.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like this 5'9" point guard and the 7'3" center.
Yeah.
But it's real.
Yes.
So not tangible.
It's just as real.
Just as real.
That's how entrepreneurship and businesses work. There's a lot of invisible things that people see that you and I might see, or somebody who's running a business might see, where other people don't see it in the start.
Right. They might not even see it.
Right. And this is what money is, value. You can exchange it for money. You can value and vision
and time.
Right. You can turn it into money at some point if you want to.
Right.
If you don't, you can keep just offering more and more and more. And that's where kind of money comes from. And so as entrepreneurs and people who see business, that's how they grow. Now, the counter argument to that is, so basically for other dummies like me who didn't know about basketball, when you shared that analogy, for me, how I think about it is like, if you're a left back, you're not going to be a great striker. If your strengths are left back, or if your strengths are more in playmaking, then maybe you're better in the center and not as a striker, or as a CB, center back.
Right.
And the counter argument is, well, what about trying out different things, and then you can grow through adversity.
Sure.
And you can grow through pain. But I loved what you said. You said that there's a path of least resistance.
Yeah.
And then there's everything else. I love that. And basically, I think what that means, how I interpret it, is you can try every other position. You can be a CB and a striker, or a shooting guard and a point guard, and all those different positions, and grow. You're going to become better. But would Messi be Messi if he was, or most people know Cristiano Ronaldo. Would Cristiano Ronaldo be Cristiano Ronaldo if he was a defender for a very long time, and he was a midfielder, and he was a striker?
Right.
Probably not, but he became who he is today because he stayed in that one position. Somebody saw that vision. Now, he took the path of least resistance, but I still think he faced a lot of adversity.
There's no doubt that you can find adversity and opportunities for personal growth within your lane, and that's the path of least resistance.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
And then everything else is stumbling, falling, kind of bouncing around, trying to find yourself. It's good to try to find yourself through all that, but I think there's better ways to find yourself.
Yes.
And then you can actually take a shorter time. If you can find yourself earlier on, go all in on your strengths, make them your superpowers, and then understand how you can work with other people.
Yes.
Right?
I love that. I absolutely love that. Like one of my clients who works with me in my YouTube program, so I'm helping people overcome obscurity, scale their business, successful entrepreneurs, and help them, crush it with YouTube to sell their products or whatever it may be. And I'm working with him, and sorry, what were we just talking about? I forget a lot.
So about strengths.
Yes, and so one of the things is that he's working in like he's making a lot of money doing what he does currently.
Yeah.
And that's great, but he's also doing a lot of tasks that can be so easily outsourced. And every time he talks with me, and I ask him what's draining him and what's causing this mental fatigue and all this stress, and he's sharing with me that he's sitting there doing invoices for like 10 hours. Or doing invoices for 15 hours. And he's like, Kazi, but that's what makes me the money. And I'm like, but you don't have to do that.
Right.
You know, somebody else can send the invoices.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And he's making more than enough to easily hire, but he wants to even keep that chunk of the money for himself.
Yeah.
If he has not even a full-time independent, like, gosh, it will take 10, 20K a year.
Right.
Paying that secretary or that virtual assistant.
Yeah.
But the peace of mind that he gets, and I easily feel like he can half, you know, 1.5x his income.
Yeah, or at a very minimum, have emotional bandwidth and energy back. I mean, just to be happy.
Just to be happy.
That's the minimum. The maximum is you can 4 times your income if you get 50% of your day back to then leverage your strengths and superpowers to make more money.
Yes. 100%.
Oh God, it's a hard lesson to learn. So when I was at CDW, they start you at, and CDW is a technology company, business to business. They start you at 25 grand. They give you a list of some accounts to cold call and sell to. The minute I began making money, we hired a full-time assistant on our dime for 50 grand. So like, people thought we were nuts. We were like 2 years in. They're like, dude, you guys are way too young. You don't need it. But me and my partner realized like that stuff we actually sucked at. In fact, it might have been detrimental to the customer service. So it wasn't a win-win-win because we didn't love it. We sucked at it and we kept messing things up. So we went all in. We were making maybe 100 grand at the time, and we each put in, you know, about 30 grand each to get this full-time assistant.
Wow.
But what that bought us back was emotional bandwidth and energy to leverage our strengths and superpowers, which was building relationships. Not typing. So yeah, we were losing 25 grand, but we ended up making 250 grand each. So why not? But people don't have that that thinking outside of the box.
They don't.
You have to sacrifice a little.
People don't want to make a short-term sacrifice.
Right.
Even if they're getting something in the long term.
Yeah.
Like, they want to eat, like, they say they want the six-pack, but then you put a chocolate in front of them.
Yeah.
And the long-term vision of the six-pack, it starts to get very foggy.
Right.
And the short-term satisfaction from eating the chocolate is so strong and clear that they'll eat the chocolate.
Right.
Now, what's lacking is clarity.
Right.
If they're extremely clear on what their body looks like and feels like, they're not like, well, it's 6 months from now, you know, I want a six-pack. They're like, I want 82 pounds of skeletal muscle mass. 14 pounds of fat, 10% body fat. This is who I look like. This is what my height and body weight is going to be. Once it's so clear, then they can look at the chocolate or the 6-month vision and have the same restraint of holding themselves back.
Everything they do then aligns with that end goal.
So then making that tough decision is just as easy as eating the freaking chocolate.
Right.
How did you start letting go of some of the control, you know? Like, what was that first thing that took place where you were like, I'm going to bring somebody else on or have them help me out? Was it your wife or was it... But even if it was your wife, how did you feel at that time to give up some of the control?
So with my wife, it was a little different story because I fully trusted her to do anything. Like, I believe she can do anything. Did it mean it brought her fulfillment, happiness? No. In fact, it wasn't what she wanted to do, and it brought her misery, right? So the trust thing and giving it to her was easy. But giving it to other people, you know, I would like feed a little bit, see what happened, feed a little bit, see what happened. And things would just keep dropping down. Like I'd throw it, lob them a pass, and it would just drop down. And it happened frequently. And it came to a point where I thought I just had like the opposite of the Midas touch. So I thought that everything that I touched turned to shit.
Wow.
Not gold. And really, it was a horrible, horrible lens to view the world through because now everybody was like a threat.
Wow.
In a way, right? But the reality is, I wasn't taking accountability for not understanding human nature and people.
Yeah.
So what I learned from it all, after a lot of suffering and a lot of mistakes and a lot of introspection, a lot of learning, a lot of like almost ruining friendships, all of that, was I didn't understand the team that I needed to build around me based on my leadership style.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm not very good at teaching people how to do what I do. I can do, but I'm not very good at teaching people how to do what I do.
Okay.
Because what I do is very different than other people. And
Yeah.
actually, like the in the weed stuff, I'm not good at. So I don't feel great teaching them that step by step. I can teach them the concept. Here's what has to be done. Here's an SOP.
Can you teach them other stuff, like not related to how you do what you do, but do you feel like you can teach them about some concept step by step, or teaching step by step is not your thing?
So if people need their handheld, and it's not a bad thing, it's just what they need.
Yeah.
I'm not optimal to do that. I'm so high and far up in the clouds.
Okay.
That me
So
doing
micromanagement is not your thing.
I'm not good at micromanaging. In
Right.
fact, it drains me. I move at like 1,000 miles per hour, and I throw life rafts. And if you want to jump on the boat and go for a ride, it's beautiful. My mistake was I would go back and try to save people and pull them onto the boat with me, right?
Right.
People that didn't necessarily want to be saved.
Yes.
In people that just weren't equipped. So like I'm not good at micromanaging, but the people needed a deeper level of coaching from the business standpoint.
Yeah.
That I wasn't equipped for. I can do it, but my natural mode of operation is not there, which it brought me misery, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't enjoy it, and it drained me. So if you build your business around that and you don't understand your leadership style, you could end up hating your life,
Yeah.
right? And the biggest turning point for me was we brought on a former gym owner who ended up closing her gym down, went to go coach, and we brought her on. And I was able to throw her a few life rafts, and she grabbed on.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, wow, this is how it's supposed to work. Like
Okay. Wow.
I'm not better or worse than anybody.
Right.
It's on our wall, though. Don't shrink so that others don't feel insecure around you.
Wow.
And it's not going down to their level, but I cannot not be me.
Yes.
And when I'm not me, everybody loses, and everybody's miserable because I'm
Yeah.
miserable, and that carries over to your clients, to everybody.
Yes.
And I did it for a while.
Yeah.
And that realization, it kind of like shifted things a little bit. I'm like, oh, this is how it's supposed to work.
Wow. Yes.
And this is actually how I thrive as a leader, and
Yeah.
how people will thrive under me.
Yeah.
But the people that still need a bit of hand-holding, that's never going to change. I just need to find somebody who can do that for me,
Wow.
who understands my strengths and my weaknesses, understands that I'm not just being lazy.
Yes.
I'm just not effective. And it's self-awareness.
Yes.
But it's also vulnerability. To tell your team, here's my strengths and superpowers, and everything else I'm actually horrible at.
Wow. That's beautiful.
But it's a scary thing as a leader,
Yeah.
because then most people think, well, what if they just go and open their own gym or open their own business because
Yeah.
they realize you can't do anything outside of, I call myself the connector of dots.
Yeah.
But they don't want to do what I do.
Yeah.
And I never realized that.
Yeah.
I'm really good at what I do.
Yeah.
And it's okay to suck at everything else
Yeah.
as long as you can fill your gaps.
Yeah.
In CrossFit, in fitness, it's all about working on your weaknesses.
Yeah.
But you only have one player. It's you. Right? So you have to bring up your weaknesses to become better.
Right.
In life, it's so different because you could fill your gaps with human beings whose strengths are your own weaknesses.
Yes.
And that creates
And
synergy.
that's so important.
Yeah.
I think that is so important what you said, that you have to bring up your weaknesses just as much as you might bring up your strengths. Because if you don't bring it up, those gaps aren't going to be filled and people aren't going to be able to help you with it.
Right.
It's kind of like the example of, whether, like, when you say that you can work on your weaknesses versus work on your strengths, and you're like, work on your strengths, that's kind of like a striker. He could work on defense.
Right.
He could work on his defensive skills, or he could just continue to work on his striking skills.
Yeah.
So you go, hey, I'm a striker. I suck at defense.
Yeah.
Could somebody please help me with defense?
Yeah.
I'm going to work on striking.
Right.
It takes a lot of giving up your ego.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
For me personally, ego luckily was never a thing because I had 2 older brothers to overshadow me in everything.
Yeah.
1. 2, I always did everything competitively. Like,
Okay.
so when I got into video gaming, I would play competitively online in tournaments, and I would just get my ass handed to me all the time.
Right.
So I became very familiar with losing, and I became very humble.
Right.
And then when I started chess competitions, everybody would just mop the floor with me all the time, and I thought I would be so good, and I'd just naturally crush. But it's objectively you lose.
Right.
A lot of the times in life, nobody calls you out on losing. And if you don't compete, a lot of times you don't know what a loss really is. We're taught this mentality of like everybody is a winner, for example.
Right.
And I don't think that's healthy.
No.
You should know where you're weak and where you're strong, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
No. It's essential.
Yes, it's essential. And so what happened with me luckily was like when that happened, I'm just very okay with telling everybody what my weaknesses are.
Yeah.
I can't micromanage. I'm not very good with day-to-day. My mood changes. I'll get bored, but I'm very good at thinking at high level.
Yeah.
I'm really good at coming up with breakthrough new ideas or new business ideas and like rallying the troops.
Same thing, yeah.
And so I can either fight myself for the rest of my life and hate myself for not wanting to do those things.
Right.
Or I can admit that I'm a striker.
Yep.
And build that team. And
Yeah.
so even once you gave that analogy about the basketball team, I started to, and I'm a soccer fan.
Yeah.
I started to think of my team as a soccer team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the customer service people, that's kind of like your defensive line.
Right.
That's your defense line, like refunds and making sure everybody's happy. And then you have like the center field playmakers, which might be the people who are thinking in the clouds.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite players
Or salespeople or whatever you might want to call them.
Yeah. So like, for example, the people who are coming up with the ideas or the different plays. So, Zidane is one of my favorite soccer players. And it's like they have to decide, is it time to pass the ball to the center backs or is it time to pass the ball forward?
Right.
And sales team, in my mind, is kind of like the striking.
Yeah.
They're the strikers. They're closing the deals and they're closing the sales. But just so important to understand yourself completely and then to understand other people. And so even the people who are doing jobs right now, understanding yourself is very important because you can understand what role you will thrive in.
Yeah.
What role you will crush in, because it's not okay doing something that makes you miserable or makes you feel indifferent when that's most of your life.
Right.
What do average Americans work from 18 till they're 65? How many years is that? A lot of years.
A lot of
40
years
plus,
and it's,
maybe.
at least a third of your life.
Third of your life.
And the other third
9
you're
to
sleeping.
5.
You're working 8 hours. You're sleeping 8 hours, and then you might have.
And you
some
come home with
transit.
bad energy.
Yeah.
So the time you spend with your loved ones, it's like average and mediocre time.
Right.
Then your children are not like who they could be.
Yep.
And then it's like a generational thing, and it just passes on, and next generations are, and so if you're okay with that, then do it. But if you look at it very introspectively, in quietness, no noise,
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people won't be okay with that.
No, and they really shouldn't. But it's almost like you have to snap out of this
Haze. Drifting mode that Napoleon Hill's in his Outwitting the Devil calls it. Great
hypnotic
book.
rhythm.
Great recommendation, by the way.
It was amazing.
Read that book. It's unbelievable.
Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill. Beautiful analogy of a conversation with the devil. And the devil really is just the voice inside of your head that stops you from becoming what you could become. And it just uses fear and doubt, right? And we all can relate to that. But people, and everything that I've learned up to this point made me realize my new purpose in life is to provide a canvas for people to understand themselves. So to help adults figure out who they are. A lot of the times people go through life and they stumble through life just trying to find themselves. And then maybe they have student loan debt. Maybe they're in a career because they have student loan debt that they thought they wanted to do but really hate. But they have all this debt. Now they've bought a house. and they begin kind of painting themselves into this corner. Then they have kids, and then they paint themselves deeper into the corner. And then they look up at 50 and they realize, and maybe earlier, I hope earlier, but at 50 they realize, like, what did I do? Like,
Yes.
I'm trapped.
Yeah.
And the reality is, you're not trapped, so long as you're willing to sacrifice everything you have for what you can become.
Yeah.
And it's a common theme, but people are deathly afraid of giving up their car or their house because of pride and ego.
Yes.
Or whatever it is that they're attached to that's stopping them.
It takes a lot of sacrifice.
It does.
I mean, I'm sure it took a lot of sacrifice on your end, and on my end, I never really thought of it as sacrifice, but it is sacrifice. So, like, one example is when I was starting the business, like Clever Programmer, and I wanted to go all in. Here's what I did. When I started seeing very little traction, I'm talking, we didn't even have 1,000 subscribers yet.
Yeah.
Saw a little bit of traction. This is where I'm like, kind of like how you guys got the assistant before anybody else thought it was a good idea.
Right.
I already had my iMac on a loan. I had my lighting kit on a loan.
Yeah.
This mic that you see right here actually was on a loan.
Nice.
The laptop, literally everything.
Yeah.
Okay, was just on pure credit card debt. And all the clients I had and the software development I was doing and the freelancing I was doing, I cut. So I went from having a 6-figure salary as a 19 or 20-year-old to $0 in revenue every month, to having debt. And then what I did on purpose is got an office where I was paying $1,000 a month to get additional expense. And I'm like, now I'll survive purely out of just need for survival.
Almost like you're back against the wall.
Back against the wall. And that's when I think the best. And that's when I'm excited. And that's when I come alive.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, now this is an interesting challenge. And so for me, I did that, and I dropped out of college.
Okay.
So there's another of that. And then
So I did too.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a common theme, and it just makes me feel reassured every time I hear that.
I think just
I hear that
uber
so
creative
much.
people, you're listening to it and you're like, when am I going to use this?
Yes.
I can make it without all of this.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's you.
Right.
Like, it's not a piece of... There's nothing wrong with education, but what I've always said is use it as one source of education.
Right.
What people do is they shut their brain off from all forms of education. They're not listening to audiobooks. They're not going to conventions. They're not following anybody. They're not listening to even themselves.
Yeah.
And they're just using college as everything.
Yeah.
And they're just letting it think for them.
Yeah.
They're letting it decide for them. And they're hoping and praying and wishing that piece of paper will entitle them to a job, which they don't even want.
Right.
Scary.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's a scary thing. So ultimately, it's like, you don't need it. If you want to go through it, go for it.
Right.
But you don't necessarily need it. And it's ultimately you, and just understanding that, coming up with something where you're providing value to the world, it just can't go wrong. But that's hard to, I feel like, wrap your mind around.
It really is, and it's a systematic, almost brainwashing of society to say you have to do this.
Yeah.
This is just part of the American dream. Go to college, get a
Even
mortgage.
that dream isn't a lot of people. I feel like that dream is the dream that people see other people have, and then that's when it becomes their dream.
Right.
So the dream of getting a degree, getting married, and having kids.
Yeah.
And while there's absolutely nothing in the world wrong with that, the thing that might be wrong with it is if it didn't come from you and it just came from like FOMO, like fear of missing out.
Right.
And that's kind of why you just chose that path.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get it all, and you're still not fully fulfilled because there's a hole inside of you, meaning like your soul, that you're not pursuing your purpose. You've just pursued an outcome.
No, you can do more.
You've pursued an outcome. You've gotten the outcome, and that's not fulfillment or happiness.
Yeah.
The outcome is, and it's the journey. It's finding your purpose.
And so I feel like you become numb through life, and you kind of go through it in like this haze, on autopilot.
And you just accept it as like reality.
A lot of acceptance.
Now, if you can jolt yourself out of that hypnotic rhythm.
Right.
Or, we can call it programming, we can call it brainwashing, we can call it anything you want to call.
Yes.
Programming this one's in a negative sense. But
yes.
Patterns of thought through repetition that are enforced by society, the news, everything,
Right.
your family.
Yes.
If you can snap out of that, pull yourself out of the brush and catapult yourself into the helicopter and look down, then you can see clearly the clarity that we're looking for.
Yes.
You can see the water and you can see the lion and you can see the traps that are set.
Yes.
Waiting for you, and you're like, no, I'm gonna sacrifice the reality I created, and I'm gonna build my own
reality.
I'm gonna construct my own reality around who I am.
Yeah.
And it takes so much courage.
So much courage.
And it takes
and a lot of
go pride.
self-awareness and courage.
But it's possible.
Very possible.
But it just takes sacrificing everything you have from a material perspective.
Yeah.
The attachment to it and everything. It doesn't mean don't care. It means not being
And it doesn't
attached.
mean like sell everything you have or just like go live like a hobo.
No.
It's not like woo-woo stuff.
But if you have a Porsche,
it's like,
and you're still miserable, then the Porsche isn't making you happy.
Right.
The job that bought the Porsche probably isn't making you happy. Maybe sell the damn Porsche and buy a cheaper car so you can afford to leave your job and do something. And maybe it's a 1-year plan. Maybe it's a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
But something is broken, and you need to address the cause and not the symptoms. Buying more shit is not going to make you happy.
Yes.
You proved it by buying the Porsche. You proved it by buying the house. You proved it by getting married. All the things, buying the ring, the Rolex or the Tag Heuer.
Yeah.
And you still have a void.
Yes.
So it's not these are the symptoms. Let's not keep treating the symptoms. Let's find the root cause, which is you haven't pursued your purpose.
Yes.
Let's be introspective, figure that out, and then develop a plan to allow yourself to do that. Maybe it's an hour a day of giving back. I don't know what it is. Everyone's different.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the looking inward is probably the most painful experience I've ever had.
It's scary, man.
It's the scariest thing. So I can understand why somebody wouldn't choose to look inward.
It's easier to just continue on with the status quo. It's less painful.
It's very less painful.
But it's longer. It's not as acute, but it's a lifetime of pain rather than just one snap out of it and be like, oh, that sucked. But now I can see clearly.
Yes.
Right.
And there's a lot of so a lot of it comes from self-awareness. And also, I feel like it starts at some level with self-awareness and just catching your own thoughts or the thoughts of, the people around you. For example, this inner dialogue of, when I was growing up, a lot of the times when we would go through this village of Wilmette and Winnetka.
Oh, yeah.
And it was actually our, this drive that my family and I would go on every weekend.
Okay.
It was our thing. And we would always go through it, just look at the homes, and we'd be like, wow, they're so amazing. They're so beautiful. And the dialogue was always like, oh, these are, really big people's things, oh, we just come here to look at it.
Right.
That's not something that, my mom would be like, it's not for us. You know, it's for people at a higher level.
Right.
Or this is something that we don't do or we can't do. Come on, that's for somebody else. And those things would kind of suffocate me at a young age.
Yeah.
And I hate, I would get angry. And now nobody ever really understood why I was getting angry at that. But those dialogues, what happens is it just stops you from thinking about a possibility of something else, completely.
Right.
And so you have to challenge that reality and question that reality. And so, the whole reality of my brother became an engineer and he got a job, or somebody gets a degree and they get a job and a promotion, and then they retire, and whether they get pension or not, and then they die.
Right.
And they barely are surviving every month.
Yeah.
It's when I really sit back and think about it, even if you're making $100,000 a year in the United States, it's very tough.
Yeah.
To get by with the type of life you want, for your kids, the type of fulfillment that you want.
Yeah.
Because, okay, people say you enjoy spending your time with family. Do you really? Because if you did, then you would find a way to spend more time with them.
Right. That should be the centerpiece of your life, and then build it around that.
Right.
Right.
If you really enjoy spending time with your family, I love what you're talking about now, where you're like, I'm going to create this business, like, and the business is going to be self-sustaining, where he provides like the main vision and where it's headed, and you're going to be traveling for a year.
Yeah.
In what? Like in a portable house.
Pretty much, yeah.
All around the country.
An Airstream.
Yeah.
But it's an adventure, and I want to prove to myself that this all can stay without me.
Yes.
My contribution to the business, the brick and mortar business, I've done everything I can do outside of guidance, mentorship, and providing opportunity. And now it comes time where people who are very good at executing and operating are going to be working within their strengths and the things that make them light up. They're going to be rewarded handsomely for doing so, filling my gaps. And then it's going to allow me the opportunity to continue pursuing the things that make me light up. And really at the most meta macro level, it is, I like creating, I like providing opportunity, I like architecting solutions, I like creativity. And if I can do that for the rest of my life, I will have won. And everybody will win. Everybody will win. Myself, my family, the world. If I can create and fill my gaps, I can create beautiful things, and everybody wins. And if everybody can do that, because not everyone can be me, and nor should they be, because then nothing would get done. There'd be ideas all over the whiteboard, all over the wall, and no execution.
Nothing would be done.
So nothing would be done. You need somebody to execute and implement and all of that.
Yeah.
But it can't be somebody like me who does it, because you're going to crush them under their own weight.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody who lights up while doing that, right? And is uniquely equipped. They are the center.
Yeah.
I'm a point guard. I'm never going to be a good center.
Right.
And it doesn't do the team any good if I try to play center.
Yeah.
Ever.
That's
I need to know what the center does. I need to be able to relate to his position, be empathetic, and then work synergistically together as a team, right?
Wow. Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's really what it is. Just like when you understand yourself at that level, it's allowing you to now leverage and grow your business probably the fastest it has ever grown.
Yeah.
While you've probably, I'm just assuming some of the things, you've probably working less hours.
Yep.
You're probably the most effective. And now the business is making the biggest impact, and probably it's at its highest revenue point.
Yeah, and it's by sacrificing some of the pie that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Eating into the pie a little bit, the existing pie, but sacrificing some of the pie that doesn't exist as an incentive to work as a collaborative team to build this to what it could be.
Right.
And something I could probably never do by myself, given my capacity, my strengths, or my at this point in my career, my willingness to do it. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the pie thing that you're sharing, I just want to make it clear to the people who are watching. It's like, when you were sharing that example with an assistant, like what made you hire the assistant? A lot of people would see it as like, okay, there's this pie, you guys have half of it.
Yeah.
Now you have an assistant. The assistant is gonna have, so now it's like 33.
Right.
% of the pie is gonna be eaten, except what you end up not realizing is the pie doesn't exist.
Sure.
And second of all, how I like to look at it is when you bring that third person in, now you can actually figure out how this pie was made, so you can just start making more pies.
Yeah.
And maybe instead of that one pie being shared between two people, when the third person comes in and there's synergy, understanding of personality types, putting people in positions where they can win, all of a sudden you start making 2, 4, 8 pies.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Everybody
there's no
eats.
resistance, and everybody eats. Yeah.
Right, but you have to have the foresight of vision to say, okay, well, I might be losing half of the pie right now, but with the bandwidth and energy I get back to leverage my superpowers, I'm going to create 10 more pies, or I'm going to make this pie 10 times bigger, however you want to put it. And it can never get to that point. You can't wait until you get to that point to do it, because the only way you're going to get to that point is by doing it. You can't wait until it's there. You know what I mean? And people make that mistake, like, oh, I got to wait until I hit this before I do that.
Right. People do that with happiness too.
Happiness too.
That's the worst where you do it. So where people are like, I'm gonna be happy with when.
Right.
Dangerous thing. So for example, a lot of mindset coaching I have to do when I'm putting people through my YouTube program. My good friend, his name is Tenzin, and he runs a channel called, thank you.
Yeah.
He runs a channel called What's Dev, which is a coding channel. And he started after I started my Clever Programmer channel. So he was really like my first kind of student going through the YouTube program, so to speak. And I was mentoring him through a lot of it. And, there's a lot of mental blockages that come in the way.
Yeah.
Where you don't want to do it, but you kind of have to guide the person through it. And just quickly, I'm sorry, remind me of what we were talking about, because
about like the pie and not being able to see it, like when we can make it bigger, right?
Yeah. So that's definitely one of the things. So when you're kind of in the thick of things, it's really hard to see what's kind of taking place, and there's always like mental like, but what you end up realizing is that it takes just the same amount of work as you put into your current job, or you put at your gym, or you put into anything else.
Yeah.
And it takes the same amount of work to, let's say, grow a business. It's just different type of work.
Right. Same energy.
But yeah, same energy.
Yep.
Same energy. Because, and I believe in this, Grant Cardone says this, he's like, energy is infinite. That's something that you can never run out of.
Right.
But you have to focus on where you're going to kind of point it to.
And I'd add or argue or inject that energy is finite if you're working on things that drain you.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Infinite if you're working on things that like you light up while doing.
Yes.
It's really, really interesting.
So now, in terms of, this business, kind of what's the vision, and for you, CrossFit Illumine, like where is it heading, let's say 5, 10, 20 years from now?
So, I call this brick and mortar, right? Just the physical location. I've done everything I can do, from creating the framework, providing all the tools, finding the right people for the right seats who are also in the right bus. The right bus would be like culture. And now it's time for them to optimize everything that I have and make it better, but also allow them to make it different than what I may have originally set out to do, but giving them the opportunity and empowering them to make it their own.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about, being attached to the business.
Yeah.
And the way you can put it, my good friend Ryan DeBell from the Movement Fix used this analogy, and he's a very, very smart guy, outside of the box thinker. And he ran into the same problem with his online thing he used to do. He's a chiropractor. He used to do movement seminars where he traveled the world, and he just kept leveling up and kept like kind of growing as an individual. And we've been lockstep in that process. And he said, you have to be able to imagine you have a suitcase.
Yeah.
And you have to put everything that it takes to run your business into that suitcase. And you have to be able to put the suitcase down and then work on other things. And when you want to pick the suitcase back up to work on it, you can do it.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to detach yourself from it.
Wow.
And maybe what your idea of what the outcome could or should be.
Yes.
And that's brave. That's courage.
Yeah.
But I believe that given the right team, even though it might not be exactly my vision now, and I'm helping form that, but I'm allowing them to be a part of forming that vision instead of me pushing it down to them now. It could be more beautiful. I don't know. But I'm willing to take that risk, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it could be more beautiful. It's going to be different. It might not be exactly how I would have done it, but it could be better.
Yeah.
But you have to trust those people. You have to trust the systems you've built, put in place. It's cool.
Now let me ask you, when you're speaking with your team, are you focusing more on the to-do list? Or are you focusing more in terms of empowering your team and management, or are you focusing more on the outcomes with them?
So I'm focusing more my role, and I have, people who do coach development, because I'm not good at coach development. And actually, I'm a good coach, but I'm not a great coach. And I could be, but it's only for like an hour. right?
Yeah.
And I can give everything I got. I can get super technical, and I can do anything.
Yeah.
But where I revert back to is I begin talking about philosophy.
Nice.
And it's important, but people
Yeah.
here, they like that, but they also have to be coached. I need people with attention to detail.
Like they need some strategy and some tactical advice at some point.
And that goes for even coaching my coaches. I can't.
Yeah.
I can do it, but am I the optimal person to do that? So my whole role with my staff is leading them to pursue their purpose and continuing to readjust what they do based on what they loathe, what they light up while doing, and in Purgatory.
Wow.
And that's a constant shuffling, and they evolve and they grow as you go. So sometimes it's like, oh God, nobody wants to do X, Y, and Z, and it's good to understand what those gaps are and continue to see those gaps rather than have people do them miserably just because it's part of their job, or maybe it's because they don't want to let you down.
Yeah.
Maybe they're afraid to say something. Maybe they don't even know they're miserable.
Yeah.
But you can see it and everybody else can see it.
Yes.
And they're just stuck in this haze
Yes.
of just doing, and you have to pull them out. So I call it like leading them to water, and also making them drink by saying, hey, you're miserable doing this. Actually, I see you light up while doing this. Let's figure out how to build your career around the things that make you light up.
Yeah.
You might have to make a little sacrifice and give up X amount of money in the short term.
Yeah.
But here's where I think we can get, and you're going to be more fulfilled, and you're going to be happier.
Yeah.
And it's really like making them believe in themselves.
Yes.
And that's so important. And I don't think I believed in myself until recently.
Wow.
Fully believed in myself. And it's once you do that, you have to help other people do it.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And making somebody believe in themselves, sometimes it can be a scary thing. Like, for example, I shared with you the recent friendship that kind of came, not friendship didn't come to an end, but the involvement in the business came to an end.
Right.
And it was like me projecting my belief in that person.
Yeah.
And putting that belief, and kind of believing in that person, but then I don't think he was ready to believe in himself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be kind of a dangerous thing, because you can lead them down this path where they were never meant to succeed, or
you're
not
setting
never,
them up,
but kind of you're setting them up
for
failure
based on where they're at right now,
right?
Mentally, maybe.
Exactly. And as somebody who is an entrepreneur who romanticizes, who finds the best in people, I feel like I'm doing a good job of finding the best in people and finding kind of even like what they're talented at, but maybe not at this point good at understanding people.
Yeah.
In terms of what would fulfill them years from now.
Mm-hmm.
What would their ultimate vision be? And so my struggle now is to kind of understand that about people, where I can understand where things are going to head 6 months or a year from now, and what things they would find fulfilling.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're doing a pretty good job at that,
But it's through massive failing at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a frequent and massive failing, and
Yeah.
being introspective and
I feel like you have to, at a certain level, fail a little bit,
You do.
to learn it.
And I learned in the hardest way possible. So the way we teach coaches to kind of figure this out is we have 3 circles. Should I draw?
Yeah.
I like drawing.
Everybody loves.
All right, so we have 3 circles. We have the classic Venn diagram, but 3 circles. So we have perfect day. Mm-hmm. So what's their ideal day? Then you have career goal, so like monetary, how much money you want to make, and then strengths. So like what we do is we try to find out where this is, and we'll have less of the outer skirts, right?
Yes.
And then more of like, okay, well, let's not even bother having you do things you're miserable doing. And really, let's just focus on like getting here, but maybe it starts by getting here first, right?
Yes.
And maybe you're doing some things that you don't love to do, but you don't necessarily detest and loathe, and maybe that's just to make this, right?
Yes.
But eventually, we want to eliminate these, and we really want to get to here.
Yes.
So it's building their career plan based on that.
I love it.
And then, so if you're at point A today, and you want to get to point Z, then you have to have benchmarks and stepping stones for them to get there. And you have to visually show them that you're working with them to get there.
Yes.
And then you're always going to constantly readjust at every point when you meet with them and say, how are things going? You know, and it's a two-way street at that point, and they're vested in building their career.
Yes.
It's not you telling them what to do. They're choosing what they want to do, and then they're building it around that. And
Yes.
people are more fulfilled that way than they will ever be if you start with this dollar amount. I need to make 70 grand. I will do anything to make 70 grand.
Yes.
That's not sustainable, right?
That's not sustainable.
No.
I absolutely love how you said that when you're sharing this with the people or your team, it's more outcome driven instead of like to-do list. Because, and this is great, I kind of had an epiphany just looking at this. I feel like combining hell, purgatory, and heaven, along with the outcomes that you want, what people can figure out is like they can work in their own element based on this roadmap.
Yeah.
And then because you're giving them you're having them focus on outcomes rather than to-do list, they'll come up with their own way to get that result. And so they're becoming leaders, and they're finding their biggest leverage points.
Right.
You know? And so they're going to grow the business and themselves in the fastest way possible. So I think this is a really great map. And something I also want to share is like in the start, you're kind of like when you were saying everybody was pulling at you. Know, in the start, so a lot of people are like, as a business owner, you feel like you have to be doing everything yourself.
Yeah.
Except ultimately, when the business grows to a certain level, you want it so the business can run without you.
Right.
And it's not because you're lazy and you don't want to do it. It's so it's a real business.
Well,
so then if you're sick, you know, like I was, and I literally couldn't make content for a month.
Yeah.
You know, or if I'm going through like something like somebody in the family died, or some emotional thing is happening, I can't make content because then my energy is low. The people who are watching is like, Kazi, why are you so sad?
Right.
And I'm like,
well, yeah.
Like,
don't you understand what's going on in my life?
Exactly.
Like, what's wrong with you?
And so then, I'm retaliating at them.
Yeah,
and
you're on defense.
I'm on defense, and then it's creating like a hate relationship,
Yeah.
and then it's draining me every time I'm doing something that
resentment, right?
And then it starts building resentment, and so basically, you were, here, and you had all these other people around you, who were kind of pulling on you.
Yep.
Who were kind of pulling on you. And this is the business in the start, and if any of you guys follow Alex Sharfin, he talks about different levels of the business. So you have between $0 to $40,000 a year, he calls it the seeker, you're kind of just figuring things out. Between $40,000 to $100,000 a year, I believe he calls it promoter.
Okay.
Then there's $100,000 to $300,000 a year. And then $300,000 to $1 million a year, where he's like, you really need to pull yourself out of the business so you can work on the business rather than within the business.
Right.
So ultimately, what you want to be is like, instead of all these people pulling on you, you want to take yourself out of it and kind of be a person who's here and providing guidance to everybody when they need it, but not like being a bottleneck.
Right.
So these people could work synergistically with themselves, and the business could grow, every day.
Right, and they're incented, invested on growing it without you.
Yes.
Doesn't mean that you're not there for them, that you're not going to help them.
Right.
But yeah, like if you do everything, chances are you're doing everything at 20% of your capacity.
Yes.
And that's poor.
Yes.
And we've all been there. But anybody who's working within their strengths that has 80 or 100% of their capacity is going to crush you at doing that.
Crush you.
And really it's more about, if you own a business, it's about consistency.
Yes.
If you produce content, it's not one great piece of content. It's that drip of content where like they might see you once, but then they can expect you, right? Like Rogan, every week,
Rogan.
Dude, he's a machine, but he's built that reputation. So service, consistency matters. Everything is all about consistency.
Yeah.
And if it relies on you, chances are you're going to screw up eventually.
Yes.
Or you're going to just become miserable and become resentful.
And different personality types,
Yeah.
exactly. And so Rogan's personality type, he has done Taekwondo. He's done black belt in Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, I believe, black belt. and a lot of different types of martial arts, and those really teach you that discipline to be able to put in the work every day without seeing any results at all.
Yep.
Like YouTube, you still see growth.
Yeah.
And business, you still see revenue or more members coming in. A lot of these things, you don't see any result. Like, you don't know whether your skill has improved in fighting, but you're just doing it every freaking day. And then that personality type and that discipline type carries over into something even like podcasts.
Yeah.
And he can do it every day. Whereas I will do it and I will be obsessed, but then I'm like, I want to do something different and impact people in a different way.
Right.
So I don't see myself as being a good person who will be consistent over like forever every week.
Yeah, like that literally makes me anxious.
Me too.
I need to have the freedom to create.
Yes.
And maybe it's new things. Rogan's interesting because he's built this podcast around being authentically himself no matter what, right? And I think that allows him to do it every day or as frequently as he can or he does.
Yeah.
When people are doing things that kind of have them shrink down to somebody they're not.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of like how other people might perceive them, of protecting a brand that they might work for.
Yeah.
Then you're not going to be able to do that all the time, and you're going to end up kind of like shrinking down rather than you being yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, so if you have that personality too where you want to change things and you say you work in obsessive cycles rather than like just one thing over and over again because you get bored, how did you work on your body? Because body is something that takes discipline and like it's slow process and it requires consistency is like the most important thing for it.
Right.
So, right now, what are you at 8 or 9% body fat?
Yeah, like 8.
Jesus, that's incredible for anybody who doesn't know about it. 8% is like, super athlete level. So like, how did you get to that and, work on your body and have the body that you've always wanted? How did that happen?
So I was 30 pounds heavier than I am today when I found CrossFit. I saw a picture of myself at my bachelor party in Miami in a pool, shirt off. And I was like, what is going on?
What year?
This is 8 years ago in 2011.
Okay.
And I was wondering, I'm like, well, why am I'm spending 2 hours in the gym a day? And this is before CrossFit.
Okay.
What's going on? It's not working. It's because I was doing the same thing over and over again.
So you can just describe what your body looked like.
I'll give you a picture.
Okay, cool.
We'll plaster it on here.
Okay.
And I wasn't happy. I'm like, wow, I have to do something drastically different. So I joined CrossFit for the first time, and it blew me away. Fell in love with it ever since. Now, the mistake I made was being a tyrant to myself. And I got really into CrossFit. But I produced outcomes by kind of not loving myself and just beating the hell out of myself.
Yes.
And I became addicted to that, and I saw results.
I think I know a thing or two about that.
Yeah, and this is physical. This is via work. This is anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're growing as a human being. So I'm very similar to you, where you would throw your back against the wall every time and then dig your way out. And there's it's an addiction. And it produces an outcome, and usually a positive one, but there's usually a cost down the road.
Yeah.
Now, with CrossFit, same thing. I would go 6 or 7 days a week. I was obsessed. I would just crush myself. And as I learned more, and as I opened my own gym and started seeing how it played out.
What was that thing you said? It's like going to the gym and trying to like pay for your sins or something?
Atone for your sins. Or just, beat yourself up.
I love
go
that.
to the dark place.
I see so many people doing that.
And again, it yields results. So it's not bad. It's better than nothing. But from
So in 2011, you saw that picture of yourself.
Yeah.
And you were going in the gym at that time, but you weren't getting the results you wanted. And so after that, you started beating yourself up?
So going to the gym, not getting the results I wanted at like the Globo gym before CrossFit. I signed up for CrossFit, and I was just obsessed. And within 6 months, I lost 30 pounds. I was ripped. I started eating like just meat and vegetables and fat. So I found a way to like hack the system, get really lean, feel really good. But it was kind of like almost pathological, where I wouldn't ever have like a bit of ice cream, or I wouldn't do this, and I went way extreme on the other end. And then, I was beating myself up in the gym, just doing more work because I thought more was better, right? And I would get better results if I just did more work. As I learned more, I started realizing like you can do this very intelligently and make it very sustainable, and produce bigger and better outcomes with less suffering.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I had to teach other people that. But it's a very natural thing for people to want to work longer hours or work harder to get more results.
Just like I was sharing with you, where I'm like, I don't feel good when I work less and make more money. It doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
Even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we see it all the time play out now in the gym, and like people doing competitors programming, thinking more is better. The equation I use is if you equate this to like the real world in working, it would be like working 52 hours a week, let's say for 70 grand. And then compare that to working 25 hours a week for, let's say, 65 grand.
Yes.
So you're working well more than half the amount
Yeah.
for almost the same outcome, and it's probably more sustainable. It's a healthier thing to
Yes.
do.
Yeah.
And it's not pathological, and it's not being
Yeah.
artificially held up by your will.
Yes.
Like just like brute force, like I'm just gonna come in and crush myself every day.
Yes.
So, you're making $5,000 more, but is that $5,000 worth, 22 more hours per week? Probably not. You can take that 22 hours a week and probably make another 40 grand or 50 grand.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
teaching people that in fitness is very important. Teaching people that in entrepreneurship is very important as well. It's the same lesson. You can work hard, but if you work smart and hard and then figure out how to work less, you can yield bigger and better outcomes if you're strategic enough, right?
Yes.
And if you're informed.
Yes, 100%. And so for you, once you kind of had that realization, it took you 6 months from 2011 things changed for you.
Yeah.
And you kind of like body changed completely in 6 months.
Yeah. So
Wow.
2011 going into 2012.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then from there you started teaching this to people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was obsessed, and I'm like, I have to share this
This is
with the world.
yeah.
I'm trying to think of the date. So if I got married in 2011, it had to be 2011. It's crazy. Maybe
Wow.
2010, 2011.
Wow. For me, it was very similar with coding, where I felt like I found a path.
Yeah.
Because I was like coding, and I started generating a high 6-figure or like low 6-figure income with coding.
Yeah.
Without a degree.
Right.
And I learned it in a very simple way, where people were like teaching you that people all over the internet are like, you need this much math, and otherwise don't even think about coding.
Right.
And it was like, that was a lie.
It
There's
was like
so
the
many
box,
lies.
The box that they drew.
Yeah, there's a box and like 30 years of experience before you can even think about making more than like $40 an hour. It was just like crazy lies or
Right.
like limitations.
Yeah.
Not even lies, probably just limitations. And I was like, no, there's like a much easier way. I kind of got lucky finding it out.
Yeah.
But whatever, it's freaking awesome, and I just want to share it.
Yeah.
And then I got started on that path, and I was like, yeah, like wanting to share. And now I want to make it much bigger than myself.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the goal.
And what year was that when you first figured it out?
2016 was where I kind of figured it out, and 2017 was where I started the business.
Right. Yeah.
So the business is really like 1.5 year old, I would say.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I think people inside of the box don't know they're inside of the box.
Yes.
And to them, it's just like there's no shortcuts. You just have to work hard. Logically, here's the checklist. Go after it.
Yes.
The problem is, I don't live in the box.
Yes.
My brain doesn't operate there, and when I'm there, I'm miserable.
Yes.
And I live on the fringes of the box and far outside the box.
Yeah.
And I see things that other people don't see because of it.
Yeah.
And it's not a shortcut. It's a different way.
Yes.
So I'd rather...
Because other people might see things you don't see either.
They
When they're
do.
thinking logically, it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, I never thought about this or that. I overlook certain things.
Right. But to be able to see things from outside of the box, sometimes it's viewed as lazy.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's viewed as being unrealistic.
They say lazy programmers are the best programmers.
Yeah, because it's like you're finding efficient ways to do what other people are doing. It's, again, working more hours for the same outcome. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
If there's a different way. And it might not be a way that people relate to.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
Like, do you really think Richard Branson is working more hours than you?
Right.
Is that why he's a multi-billionaire?
Right. The guy runs like 50 companies, I think, like some ridiculous number, isn't it?
Elon Musk is like doing all this stuff. Like, you really think he's working more?
They're
like he's just doing
efficient,
more.
Hyper efficient.
Yeah, like they're
and they think outside of the box.
Yeah.
And they know how to leverage resources and people and
right.
ideas.
Yeah.
And the world needs both. Because, again, if you're outside of the box, sometimes you can't make things happen in reality.
Yes.
But if you're in reality, sometimes you're never going to create beautiful new things because you're just doing the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's why the best thing you can do with your time or to grow a business, I feel like, is to master yourself and then start understanding other people.
Yeah. You
know,
can never lead.
That can be the best leverage point.
You can never lead anybody until you understand who you are. Otherwise, it's literally just guessing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So know thyself, I guess.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
It's the number one thing that everybody needs to do.
Boom. There you have it. Any parting words, or you think we covered good ground?
I think we covered a lot of ground. We could probably sit here for another 4 hours and talk.
Easy.
Sun is going down in Chicago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been amazing. I'm sure we're going to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Outside of it. One parting thing that I'll leave you guys with. The ancient Greeks, there were 7 sages that created hundreds of maxims or words to live by. Beautiful things. Above the pillars of the Oracle of Delphi, there was only 2 things inscribed above the pillars. Number 1 was know thyself. Number 2, nothing in excess. So if you can follow those 2 rules, you can save yourself and the world from unnecessary suffering.
Beautiful. Well, that was
been awesome. Thank you, man.
I really appreciate
it.
No, this was incredible. Thank you for coming on here and spending this time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys appreciate it. Well, that's it, guys, for this video. As always, I love your faces off, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yeah.